Hey, Joe. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's episode 50. We did it. Like, oh, did you just have an orgasm there? What the fuck happened there?
No. No. Not at all.
Like, Jesus, I know it's a big deal, and this is like 50 episodes of a show that I personally thought we wouldn't reach 10. But Jesus, man, like, you have to, like, an orgasm's a big deal for you, man. Like, Jesus.
What do you mean it's
Like,
a big deal for
hands-free and
me?
everything.
What do you mean it's a big deal for me? Like I'm struggling over here.
Like, But yeah, anyway, welcome to Silly Wales. We are very, very happy to announce that we have made 50 episodes of this show. This is a mental health podcast, and as you've heard with the previous 49 episodes, this show is for everyone, but it might not be for you, and that's okay. We discuss some topics that are fairly heavy, and though we try to enjoy ourselves, there are some times where things get a little bit overbearing and we have to discuss things that are on the more depressive side. So if that is not up your street, that is fine. You can reverse your car and we will not pester you and we will not follow you. Before we kickstart the show properly, it's really weird to say this, but today we're recording this on the 3rd of July and I woke up to about 10 or so messages saying, no one really telling me what happened either. Just people telling me, just saying, Diogo, Jota, damn, Jesus. Have you seen what happened to Diogo Jota? I was like, what? And I went on to Reddit and like nothing was really up. And I realized that I had the unfortunate moment of waking up at the same time that the news had just been released. So today, Liverpool striker, Portuguese forward as well, Diogo Jota passed away, along with his brother Andre Silva, both professional footballers, passed away in a car crash. And it's absolutely tragic for not just Liverpool fans, not just Portuguese fans, but the world of football. It's a shame when these things happen. It is a tragedy that words can't even describe. I'm an Arsenal fan, and aside from Arsenal fan, I'm a Chicago Fire fan. Two clubs that we look at players like Diogo Jota and we wish that we had for their work ethic, for his tenacity, for how he conducted himself on and off the pitch. He was a very avid FIFA player as well, which meant that he was a community hero for a lot of people as well, because that relatability factor was also there. And on a more somber note, I believe him and his brother were both recently married and they both had kids. So it makes it emotionally draining for a lot of people to have to sit here and to hear this and to take this in. And it's difficult because footballers are often dehumanized as individuals. And I think that is from very ignorant people who don't really understand how things work. But for me, players like Diogo Jota were constants in my life because every single week, you'll see them, you'll cheer for them. Maybe you boo them because they've hurt your team. They scored a header against you. But the memories of the sport that you love feature those players. So when you wake up and you hear the news that player is no longer alive and no longer with us, it is gut-wrenching. And it hits you quite hard in a way that's very difficult to actually thoroughly describe. I think it's only right to pay our condolences, just regardless of whether they're heard by his family or not, but more to people who listen to the show who are fans of Liverpool or just enjoy the world of football like I do, and offer this time of reflection. And hopefully from this, we get to really cherish the memories that we have of the people around us. And that is that.
I want to add as well, just in a world where it's unfortunately like news items are, the age thing is becoming less and less and less of a shock, like when this happens. But he's born the same year as I was, between our two birthdays. Like, he's our age. He's a young man, and Yeah, it didn't make it to 30. Like, it's a really unfortunate thing. And of course, it was a complete accident. It was a very sudden thing. It wasn't like I don't believe there was any indication that there's nothing that leads to this. Really, or it's not like it was a slow thing, or that I don't think there's going to be lots of background information coming out about this in the way that sometimes these things can be. With famous people. But that really doesn't change the fact that it's happened to someone so young. So let's just, my condolences to anyone who is close to him and affected.
I'm unsure whether I'll play like the usual Silly Whales intro or how I'll edit this out, but But regardless, whatever decision I choose to make is done with the utmost respect. So if you randomly hear the Silly Whales intro after this, and it's a bit of a shock, sorry, it's not meant to be that way. If you hear it before and then you hear us after, then it's fine. Maybe I don't know the process which I'll do it. But yeah, this show also has segments, and we've been lacking on the segments recently because Joe and I have been going through lots of different things in our lives recently. Joe's just returned from holiday, and I've just been, I feel like I've been in a washing machine. But we can now announce the return of mental health this week. And that is a segment in which we go through the news of mental health things, be it scientific studies, research papers, or we go through just general opinion columns from various contributors in the world of mental health. Today, given that it's just episode 50, we're just going to do one because it's one that we can actually talk a lot about because, we're in this mental health system. So it's time for mental health this week. And we are back. Mental health this week. We have a column with lots of detail by theconversation.com. And the title of it is Mental Health in England is really getting worse. There's quite a few surveys in this as well. And effectively what it does, it shows different surveys, different results about how mental health, the system within the mental health, especially with the NHS, is being affected by the increase in users and things like this as well. It's all linked in the description. Joe, would you like to go into a little bit more detail?
Yeah, it's sort of a survey using the revised clinical interview schedule. CIS is sort of CIS-R, i.e. clinical interview schedule revised. Cars. And I know you guys can't hear it. Just it gets me and I'm like a dog. So this survey has been done for over the course of many, many years. I believe it began in 1993. Is that correct? Yes. So there's been lots of published data as a result from this, and it's been consistent. So we're not expecting any because effectively what this is showing is sort of over time things like that, like what the changes have been. It's kind of interesting overall. There's obviously mixed things. So something that we've talked about before is the increased for anxiety disorders. By the way, the general thing that this is talking about is CDMs or CMDs, sorry. So common mental health disorders. So it's not specific most of the time. It's not like autism or ADHD as a general rule, but more something like depression, anxiety, and so on. So anxiety disorders have been said to increase by percentage increases. It's almost doubled from 1993 to 2023 from 4.4% to 8.5%, with the steepest increase being young people, over from 2% to 8%, which is a very high increase. All of which is to say that, there's these sort of more negative specific ones here, but then there are some that are showing seemingly some improvement. Like men do seem to be seeking help more. People are more likely to get treatment and so on. So it's not I wouldn't say at least it was overall bad. But I think an important point to make just about this study before we go into it anymore, just because I believe that this is the case, and I just want this to be clear as we talk about it, is that the surveys are detailed at-home interviews, this, like I said, clinical interview schedule, with over 130 questions. And this is not, like, the percentages you see are obviously based upon these adults queried, and not specifically, like, you know, it's not telling us, like, how many people in the entirety of England, for example, are amongst, you know, are getting treatment or anything like that. It's looking more, you know, depending on which subject we're talking about, it's going to be much more about the percentages, and is less interested in asking, like, how many people in the UK are seeking treatment, or how many people in the UK say they have an anxiety disorder, and so on. It depends on different reviews and so on.
Yeah, I think the key thing that people might take away is, oh, this is getting really, really bad, and NHS can't cope, and things like this. But there's a really positive spin you can have on this, is that more people are actually accessing mental health services. And that means more people are being diagnosed, and that means more people are seeking treatment, which is a net positive. Because if the stigma is going down, that means that communities or cultures in which mental health is stigmatized and seen as a negative thing, the reduction of the harm that does is, well, it's so beneficial. It's so beneficial. We're now seeing, as Joe pointed out, surveys are very difficult to properly put faith into because of the small sample size and plus the millions of people in the country. But there's evidence enough to suggest that the disparity between men and women accessing services is now, well, it's now reducing. So we're having more men accessing services. But I think it's actually really good to see that things are heading in a direction in terms of people seeking help. I am a bit sad though, because when I see things like this, I always think about how this is going in a good direction, but it's not being supported well enough either, because these services are still facing cuts. They're still not well staffed, and there's still an overall crisis when it comes to the idea of being diagnosed. For example, if you are seeking an ADHD diagnosis, you are waiting up to 3 years plus. It varies depending on your age, but that is how long you have to wait unless you can pay privately, and even that has a fairly long waiting list. So it's really important to stress how important it's really important that we stress the importance of making sure our ministers of parliament lobby and push to, well, for there to be no cuts to the NHS. And we are still reeling from the pandemic, which has had, well, significant damage on young people. We're now seeing it in the educational system, significant damage socially as well, that we have yet to even comprehend. So for us to cut funding from services that can help with these things, it's diabolical. That's all it really is.
There's also, sorry, I'm just reading as we're going through. I think there is something to be said, and I think this will come up a lot as we read this, because, like we said, there's kind of different interpretations or ways that we are reading this. For example, if we're talking about, in the case of COVID, I think that there is an argument to be made even that the events of COVID actually got people to kind of either, you know, to become, damage is no doubt there and was there, and I won't, there's no denying that. But I think that there's almost there is some argument that can be made that actually it helped people to recognize that mental health was more of a problem. People who generally found it much easier to have a healthy, to be healthy mentally were talking about how bad it was, how bad it felt, and everything like that. So I definitely think there's maybe like some cultural things, like you kind of intonated, like the, you know, if more people are going for, if there's more diagnoses, that does mean that maybe culturally there is more, you know, percentage-wise, obviously, not just magnitude, that there is that culturally there is more of an accepted feeling around it. even if, yes, that there are still these issues. It's kind of hard to say what the end result will look like for any country, let alone like our country, of what the statistics will end up looking like in a society in which we feel most comfortable. Like certain statistics we would want to be as low as possible, like, you know, suicide rate, or what's another like example of something that would clearly show like that we have dealt with an issue.
Inpatients into long-term mental health care, things like that.
Yeah, so people aren't, you know, kind of like stuck in the system for long periods of time, or even for like you were saying with the 3 years thing, like the amount of time it takes before we can get to the point of a diagnosis, and what's the aftercare like, and you know, all of these things. These are the kinds of things of which I think we would always want to see positive improvement. And there's going to be eventually a point, if we're ending up in a direction where we would want to see, you know, there's a statistic that we might want to be looking for as the goal, and I think we're very far away from reaching the point where I am having to say to people like, look, the numbers are really going in the right direction, so much so that I don't think we need to like have quite the same level of angst about it as we did previously. I think we're still far away from that. But I just wanted to talk about this because I also don't want people to have angst about this in a way, you know, I mean, like there's a level to which just when we're talking about like statistics, or when talking about how bad things are going, there's a level of despair that comes out of all of this, and I don't want people to just have that despair, like when hearing about like the mental health, like health, you know, the health system in respect to mental health. And I really wouldn't want people to kind of shy away from engaging with it or talking about it and so on the basis of, oh, it's all doom and gloom. Like there's I think the general tendency or the general trend seems, you know, at least overall, seems to have been a good thing in various ways. I think that there are like lots of discussions that can be had about why things are worse here and there. But like we were saying, like maybe it's, you know, when we talk about like autism diagnosis, and we talk about how that's obviously not related to vaccines, we're talking about the fact that like, hey, more people are getting diagnosed accurately. So, you know, that's a reason why it increases. Like there's like statistics that can be used in lots of different ways, and it's important to kind of come at this from, I think, as if we are able to come at this from like a broader scope in which we are able to read both sides of it, you know, like being able to interpret it in these different ways, that we'll actually we'll have a better time with it ourselves, as well as, you know, like just by engaging with it, because I think I just want to avoid putting people off. I think that's what I'm starting with on this. I just don't want to put people off.
Yeah, 100%. I think I truly think that I said this about a lot of things. This is the best time to be alive, without a shadow of a doubt. A lot of people who are, to be honest, my favorite thing is when I hear people our age say, I wish I was born in the 80s. I'm like, no, you don't. You're black and you're gay. Shut up. Okay? Like, fundamentally, there's multiple reasons why you don't want to be born in the 80s, or be an 80s kid. Fundamental reasons why you don't, okay? This is the best time to be alive, where we are learning acceptance, where cultures are adapting to how the world is changing around them, in which the world is actually changing, and things like the rise of social media leads to people understanding different ways of living, and understanding that their set routines and their set way of doing things isn't always the right way. So truly now we're reaching a point now where people who have been forced and pigeonholed into feeling a certain way, acting a certain way, believing certain traditions, those are now being challenged. And just like men with the idea that they can't suffer because the whole idea of toxic masculinity and how, no, we have to bear everything on our shoulders because we're men and we eat Weetabix and all that shit. Okay? No, it's changing now. So more people are accessing support, and a lot of people are now holding themselves accountable, so they access support to help themselves and the people around them. Which means my prediction is we're going to end up seeing a reduction in everything to do with mental health within the next 20 to 40 years. We're going to see a reduction of inpatients. We're going to see a reduction of deaths by suicide. We're going to see a reduction of cases of abuse as well. We're going to see a reduction of these things because the world is going to get better. That's if we don't, overheat the planet and die. But that's here or there.
Yeah, I think that comes into the conversation. By the way, I love the traditional discussion about how women don't eat Weetabix.
Exactly.
But I also, but that's kind of what I was referring to before. I think there are like interesting conversations that could be had about why people feel bad, or like why people don't think that this time is good. I was very much thinking about like not having kids, for example. Not me specifically, but like not having kids is a very common like feeling that some people have, not because that's just their choice, it's and they just don't want them, but more so like, oh, I think that the world is bad to have a child, and to bring a child into the world would be bad. Like some people have this opinion, antinatalist. And I don't really agree with that overall. Obviously, you can just choose not to have kids. That I don't have an issue with. But I think that, but things like you mentioned it, like climate change, like that kind of despair and stuff, I think is very, and it's very easy in any point in our lives to kind of see the thing that's bad right now and really find alluring, for example, the past, because we sort of know good things about the past, even if it's weird how we kind of, for nostalgia reasons, we tend to forget the bad things about the past, even though generally we're quite negative in how we view things. It's quite weird. Maybe it's not the case. Maybe it's just like when we feel bad about our time, what happens is our brain goes back in memory, to think about the past, and it's not looking and when it does that, it's not looking for bad stuff, it's looking for good stuff as a form of comfort. Maybe that's where it comes from. Maybe it's about thinking about change. I don't know. But and many people will think towards the future, for example, in very much the same way, just anything that's not here and now. Having said all of this, I think a thing that was discussed in this, which I believe has been true for a long time, and I don't believe that. I actually don't know, for the sake of things. I don't know. Did this increase necessarily? I'm just going back now to have a look. Is it that it's increased, or that it just is the case? I think it's just that it is the case still. I don't know what the change over time has been. But specifically regional disparities. So there's an element of this which is like it's socioeconomic in nature, but there's an element of this which is that it could be about the kinds of services to an area, as well as just the money available in an area. So it could be that like the poorer areas tend to be in these regions. So to be clear about the regions, I should make it around 25% of adults in the East Midlands and the Northeast had a CMD, a common mental health disorder, compared with around 90% of people living in the Southwest and 16% of those in the Southeast. So the richest area, as you can imagine, London. I say richest, obviously again, it's all quite relative, even especially in London, it's a very relative scale. But the South tends to be more wealthy and the North tends not to be. And I don't know how much of that is just the case of wealth, for example, because again, like even if you're in the poorer areas up north, it isn't necessarily true that the wealth disparity is necessarily as much. The wealth. Like if everyone is slightly poorer in the north, then like within your area, you might have like a very similar like influence compared to one another, but you would still have the same prices largely in supermarkets, for example, in the north and the south. So that you've still got that negative. But I also wonder just how many services are available. How many of the services actually can provide X or Y because of population or because of other reasons that have been deigned by the people who control the NHS, unfortunately. as to why these people aren't allowed to have certain things available to them, and not to mention things like the number of people who I could go on a tirade about services in the north that are incredibly worse than those in the south, and yet the expectations in the north are possibly more than in the south actually on things like commuting, and there's just other even greater for certain things that in the south are made a little bit easier. Your life is made a little bit easier by lots of different things being available to you. I don't know. I don't know what the full idea is, but this has obviously been a very long-standing thing, and I would hope over time that this improves. But I already know other areas of governmental systems that are very much lacking behind. So I can only believe that it that has to be the case with the NHS and the mental health system in general, and it isn't just a case of wealth, like just not just a pure case of wealth, even though wealth is definitely a factor that will help. Being in poverty is not good.
Yeah. All right. As always, we'll keep you updated if this story develops as anything else around the story. But aside from that is it. So it is now time for the journal. It's time for the journal. We talk about our lives and all this stuff. We have a little special one here because, of course, this show is now 50 years old. It can now finally finish paying off that mortgage, and now it's gonna finally go to Glastonbury, and it's definitely not gonna yell death to the IDF.
We're just talking about despair, man.
It's definitely not gonna do any of those things. This episode is 50. We played darts on a Tuesday. We're going to do a recap of the first 50 episodes and discuss how we feel now we've reached that point. Joe, do you have any standout moments or anything that you feel like, this journey as anything like that? To say something.
Just say something, anything.
Say something,
Before we get into anything specific, I think I would generally say that I just didn't expect. It's not that I didn't expect this, because obviously, when we started it, and I didn't quite know what it was going to look like by the end of it. I mean, we're not at the end of it, to be clear,
yeah,
and I don't necessarily think that we're at the end of the kind of format of the show or what we want the show to be. It's like a whole big thing has been about like what do we want the show to be? What do we think we should do with it? And that will continue. That's an evolving conversation, and we've been thinking about this outside of comments, but there have been trace comments here and there that have like pushed us to feel one way or the other, or have at least reminded us of a feeling we already had and made us have the conversation about it, and that's been fun. I definitely see this. I feel more like this is a produced like a product than how I originally felt when we started, which is a good and bad thing technically. I wouldn't even say it's a bad thing as such, but it's made me think differently in a way that has changed my perception of it at the very least, and has, which I think is just me, like, having done this, I'm less like I'm less thinking about it just purely for the personal benefit of myself, like the enjoyment of it only. There's more of a feeling of like, oh, like we could do something with this, or this could go somewhere different. And the way in which you're like positively, I think it's good, is that it's made me think about what we're actually doing, like ultimately, and that just talking into a microphone for how for the sake of it, and just for the fact that I will just talk forever if you let me, about basically anything. Like it's good to have settled that down a bit. It's good to feel like at this very moment, at least, even though I know I've been talking for a while, I feel like the direction I'm going in is where I want it to, and I can kind of recall what I've just said, and I don't think I'll repeat myself over and over again like we did in some episodes, or like we noticed that we did in some episodes before they even came out. And yeah, apart from like just I wish we had done more Presents episodes, like for sure. That's my biggest regret, I suppose, if anything. But as a whole, like I think our formatting and everything has been an interesting like look, like just us kind of thinking about what we're doing in a different way. It's been interesting.
Yeah, like I think the show has taken us on like a legitimate journey where we've tried to experiment with different things, and it's pushed us to be better in how we, treat this platform that we're on. The moments that we've created, we've done a lot here. We've actually created a lot. We've had people comment and send us emails about the show. We've had our own friends like listen to it and then explain like how they feel about certain things. We've had really, really, really necessary criticisms and also really, really necessary praises as well. Sometimes we can get lost in the details of whether this is worth doing and things like that. And, there's been times I've been caught up in the numbers and how many listeners are we getting and the sponsorships and things that aren't really relevant and are yet. Like, I'll be shocked if we have sponsors by episode 100 or any sort of money income from this episode 100. And after like episode 25, I was like, oh yeah, I'm actually just enjoying doing this show. And I feel a little bit lost without it in a way. So it's really highlighted to me the importance of doing things that you enjoy. And this is something that I definitely enjoy at the moment. Yeah, for sure.
It's definitely got us talking more. I mean, obviously, like that's what the show is. But like, we are. I'm kind of having to talk to you specifically more about my mental health. Maybe not than ever. Like, there were definitely times in our lives where we saw each other a lot, but we have generally, especially because I'm away. Like, we saw each other a lot because we lived near each other.
Yeah.
But like, if I was here, I never would have spoken to you as much as if not for this show. Like, this has been a very good kind of, it's bridged that gap a bit, much like D&D did for lots of people that I knew. And it does make me realize what the use of, we're recording this on Discord, like the use of these things and how great they can be for the social experience and everything. And of course, it has made me realize how much more I need to talk to you, like how good it's been to keep in contact with you. And I do want to kind of continue that, and I don't want to have to rely on this. If it came down to it and we stopped doing this, I don't want to worry to be like, am I going to talk to you ever again? You know what I mean? Like, I don't. Yeah. I wouldn't want that to be the only reason for its existence.
Yeah, because like we never. I don't think there was ever a worry that we're gonna fall out of contact, never speak to each other. Because we've always actually been in like bar the whole thing where I went on my own spin-off arc like 10 years ago now. We've always been in like relatively like frequent contact. But whenever I might like speak to somebody about mental health or whatever, and the first thing I think of, that might be a good mental health this week thing. And I start thinking about like, this connects to something that I enjoy, and I enjoy like, it's made me very conscious of the fact that mental health is an important thing in our lives. Which is weird for me to say if you know me personally, because mental health is something I discuss quite often. But it's made me conscious of the fact that this is a real thing that happens, and that we have the ability to push for changes, make changes in our own lives, help people, help ourselves. And that's what's made this an enjoyable experience, because I've had people say, hey, like I fall asleep to your podcast, which a lot of people think is a criticism and like a bad thing and need to be more engaging. No, that means we have voices that are not grating enough so that someone could fall asleep peacefully. That's crazy, because I hate the way my voice sounds. I barely listen to the show back. like I do my absolute like best to not have to listen to it for extended lengths of time. For that reason. So when someone says, I fall asleep to episodes, I'm like, Jesus Christ, man.
I mean, I think your voice is good. I think my voice is like maybe traditionally not as nice sounding as yours, although depending
go
on who
fuck
you
yourself
are,
about that. Your
that
voice
might
is
not be the
great.
case. Well, I just mean traditionally. I don't mean like I don't mean my voice is ugly. But like I think I will say like online it's definitely become more of a thing of like like breathe out through your nose as like a pseudonym for like not pseudonym but like the idea of like laughing
Yeah.
as because it's true, like you do that because you're kind of on your own and you're not in company, so you're not really like laughing out loud as such, and there are lots of things on the internet that are like passable as funny but not necessarily that funny. And then I think like the to sleep to is such a common phrase now. I love it. And but it's nice to be considered for that because there's obviously lots of things that could be. If I don't know if there's any more about the general structure. I'll just go into something else anyway and you can bring it back around to general structure if you
yeah,
like.
sure. Please.
I was gonna say I mean any conversation that we've had about death on this podcast I love. I talk about it the most out of us two, and I find it a very interesting conversation and always the best reactions that you've told me in real life or on the podcast about like reactions to our episodes. Those have been the most interesting to me and the most like kind of like, oh, okay, like like I like everything that it's been about. That's not a sentence, but I enjoy, without getting literally me talking about death again for the next just repeating that kind of topic and why I enjoy it. I think it's very important that we've managed to psych each other up or give each other confidence enough to talk about. I mean, we've given ourselves the permission to as well, but that we have given one another the kind of confidence and permission to talk about any of these subjects. I mean, I don't think death is even like the worst subject we could talk about. Like, obviously not. Like, I think we have maybe talked about worse subjects, but I think it's like a clear threshold that we've crossed by discussing it.
And we will go deeper as well.
Yeah.
Like, we will go deeper. It's just like things take time, and we're all trying to figure out exactly what this show is, as we mentioned earlier. So, like, one of the things I appreciate about this show is the fact that we've had those experiences and we've shared those experiences, and people have connected with those things as well. Like, you're right, the death episode is something which a lot of people have come up to me and been like, hey, that was dark, or like, hey, that reminded me of this thing, and hey, that brought me back to this thing. And what I notice a lot of it is that people have been reminiscing about people they either lost or reminiscing about how they felt in those moments. And it's good to really be a part of someone's, like, be it their healing, be it their understanding of something. It's crazy that we fostered that ability in a way. That might not be a sentence, but yeah, we've done that.
What about you?
I think for me, there's been multiple episodes now where, like, I'm prone to outburst. So there've been a few episodes where I've just like kind of went off as something, and I've never actually heard them back. I've heard them like quoted back to me in ways that, and I don't actually know I've said it. So anything like of me talking about far right politics or things like that, I've had those like memed to death, like in group chats I'm in, and I'm like, oh great, fuck me, man. Like, I can't even go off on like an unhinged sort of rant without it biting me. And like, also, like, some of the things I've actually gone off about as well have been quite funny, because it kind of shows where my mind is. This idea that the things I get really like emotionally invested in are really like really stupid. I think on this show I went on a rant about like how people eat food, and I've got into like ridiculous detail about how people get on trains and like my frustrations with like people on public transport and walking too slowly. And that's been I've gone into so much more detail than that than discussing actual racism. And it's like, and I know why. It's because I don't view ranting about far right politics as a cathartic thing. I view that as work in a way. But I view the ability to cleanse myself of those like really stupid feelings about people walking slowly on the underground. I find that cathartic. I find that quite useful. I find that quite helpful. So I love those moments, and I think coming from as somebody who has ADHD, and it's incredible how focused I've been when it comes to editing this show. I really thought that I would have like my biggest fear was we'll record 2 episodes and none of them will be uploaded, and I will struggle to start and finish them. I think I've only been late to upload an episode twice this whole run, and those were reasons because like I literally wasn't in the country, for example, or like in one case I took my laptop to do it because I'm away to see you, and I didn't get it done because I was with one of my friends. So like those are 2 examples of it all. But aside from that, I've been pretty diligent on this, and then I'm really, really, really like happy about that, which is rare. I'm never really happy about anything to do with myself. So yeah, that's it. And I feel like it's been useful in like building my connections with myself, with other people as well. Like we had the Alex Cupid show spawn out of this, which is like a spin-off of this show. When Joe's away doing something, like we had Ryan on it, and then I had like a few solo episodes, and those episodes as well. Like I think those were 1 or 2 takes at the most. Like I know that I have a talent for like doing things in 1 take. So I knew that I could sit down and record one of those episodes and make those shows with relative ease. And it's so fun because I get to just dick about for 20 minutes as well. And I will do more at some stage, but I think that City Wells has been, the catalyst of those changes. And yeah, thank you, Joe.
There's so many things I want to respond to on this. One, I want to thank you because yes, you are doing the editing. Like genuinely, it bears repeating. Like you have entirely produced the show past recording. Like the post production of it has only ever been you. So thank you for that. And I would say that you've steered quite a lot of the pre-production stuff as well. Like I definitely think you've had the most to add to this.
Ask both of us
as a whole. Sure thing. The second thing I was going to say was, I was going to say the second thing something else, but I can't remember it, so I'll come back to it hopefully. The second thing I was going to say was that the catharsis stuff that you were talking about before. I do think I just remembered it, but I'm going to continue. I do think that the effect of doing this has been an overall improvement for me. Like I still, we still had moments each where we're really down, and I have my moments where I go away and things like that, not for holiday reasons, for other reasons, where we still have our struggles, but I think overall the experience has been a good thing. I think just talking in general is a good thing. I mean, it's worth it as a sort of, not podcasting, I mean, but like talking to people is very, it's a practice in many things. It's a practice in being vulnerable with someone. It's a practice in expressing ideas, because as much as it seems like the ideas in your head, like the things that you feel and think in your head are just things that need to be fixed in and of itself, a lot of these are ideas. Like they don't come from nowhere, and they're general concepts you have that are larger than just simply, how you emotionally feel or how you emotionally think about yourself. Like just both those things they're not just opinions. They're very much like larger ideas and that is constructed within a web of lots of other ideas that you have and so on. that can actually be shown to be much more convoluted and complicated, and so it's worth kind of teasing that out. It's worth having that explored, even if we're just talking about you and a friend. We can talk to death about the need to have like to seek professional help, or to not to rely on your friends for this sort of thing. I think the benefit of me and you is that we've had years of doing this.
Yeah.
And we're also relatively, I maybe we are just relatively good at this for each other, but we've come to listen to one another and I don't think take on the burden of the other in that like emotional way, in that way. Like we've been there for one another, but I don't think that we're like,
we don't trauma dump on each other or anything like that.
But I also don't think that we like trauma take, if you know what I mean. Like I don't know what the word would be, but like I don't think we're like, I don't think
each other's burdens, anything like that.
Yeah, I don't think we're coming away from it feeling worse having spoken to each other than before. Do you know what I mean? I think that if I speak to you and you're not doing so well, or if you speak to me and I'm doing so well, it's at least my feeling of it, that we come away like neutrally or better off after having listened to our friend give their take or talk about how they've been feeling recently when they've not been feeling so great. In the sense that like either out of it came something positive or maybe not, but there is a kind of like we're remembering this thing, but we're not like we're not clung to it emotionally. We're not like suddenly we feel super bad afterwards and making it worse for one another. Which is important. I think that's kind of important from a friendship status as well, like just in general, that you're able to have these interactions with your friend and not, in a healthy enough way and in a safe enough way, like being able to do it without coming away feeling really, really upset or really bad for having done so. Because you don't want, because it's, pure self-sacrifice is not the answer to this, because you need, in many cases, people just want to be able to talk to someone. So it's not like they're actually asking you to take on that kind of emotional weight. That's the word I was looking for earlier. Like that kind of that's not what people necessarily want, and they don't want you to be worrying on their behalf, because that's also the worry, is that you're going to make someone worry. You're going to make someone feel bad for talking about things, which again is why people do go to professional help. And we don't have that much drama going on in our lives, like relatively speaking, as in like, I don't think there's anything that we talked about where I feel like other relationships are put on the line and things like this, in which case you would absolutely need professional help if like, I was going to say something that might cause your relationship with someone else to have a problem or so, you know what I mean? Like there's not been that kind of thing. And the last thing I was going to say was that, like, obviously beyond the catharsis and the practice, I would say, of doing this, of just talking to each other from a mental health standpoint, I do think that there is, this is where we do talk about the podcast more specifically. I do find that there is that as minor as it may seem, or as only slightly transferable as it might be, there's benefits to us having done this. Obviously, we've developed the format a bit over time. We do way more pre-production than we used to. Like back in the day, we didn't do anything. Now we have like a little thing in front of us that suggests like, talking points and so on that we have put down, having thought about, okay, what we may be talking about this week. And we don't do it down to the T. Like everything I've just said up to this point is literally summarized by recap of these 50 episodes. Like that's it. That's the only bullet point we have, but it's enough to keep us going, and just that thought process and the way that we've been doing things, the work. You've obviously been learning way more about editing than I have. It is, and files as well, I imagine, has been like, it has kind of improved us. It's practiced us, and even just the idea of any of this, the fact that we could do any of this at all. I think for me, it was still quite unreal for a very long time. Whereas now I actually kind of think of it in my head as a thing that we do. Like, I understand it as a product, like I was saying earlier, as a product, as an object of a virtual object, maybe, but it's an object, right? It's a thing that can exist, that can be crafted or can be made. And it's not and I'm a part of that in some way. And the quality of this thing is based upon the effort that you or I put into it, and so on. So there is a feeling of handiwork, I suppose, and there is an effort of handiwork that has happened. And so, I don't know how much this will affect my life or how much this will improve my life or whatever for having done all of this. But I think just for the exploration of it and for the broadening of our horizons, I guess you could say. For you, I think, because I think you might continue this in other ways. Even if we were to stop this completely, I think you would continue, to do something within this space, even if it's art, just other kinds of art and so on, like poetry and spoken word. I think that even just the simple fact of having done this and putting something out into the world has been like a practice in and of itself. I think it's one of those things that I wish that like young people at schools got the chance to do, is to kind of create things in the actual world that can be engaged with and can be explored in a more public space without the need to like have any real connection to them unless they want it to later on in life. But just being able to be like, hey, create something, do something, have something be that the public will see, or have something that someone on the internet could come across or whatever, like, having kind of opportunities like that, if you will. I always think that's kind of an interesting line that we don't normally go into, but because it really does break down, especially for people like you or I. This is where I'm going on now talking, but of this perceived wall that exists between like where we are and what we can do and what we actually could be and what we could make and what could be elsewhere. I think that's like I think there's sometimes a very like a big gap that we have in our heads about it, that like, having now done it, I'm like, oh, we can do this. I mean, if I was to do it on my own, I'd have to learn how to fucking edit, but I know that it can be done. I get the idea. I know that this happens. We've made a bunch of episodes. I can go to it, so it's cool. It's been fun.
Yeah. I don't think I have anything more to add. This has been it's been a good 50th episode. And do you have anything else to say, by the way?
For the journal itself, or just for the 50 episodes?
For the journal itself, we have one more thing. That's you back in town because you were in Greece. So if you want to talk about that now, then yeah, that's it.
Yeah, no, I just wanted to mention it because holy shit, was it hot here. I mean, right now I'm quite hot because the window's been closed for a while. But fuck me, man. It was it really is shocking. Like, I mean, I have to admit, everyone else seems to be saying it, and now I'm saying it as well, talking about the UK weather and temperature and stuff. I genuinely can't believe how much the humidity in the UK affects the weather, and of course just the we have a lot less AC, and it makes sense. I think the AC thing makes sense, at least in the sense that most times of the year we never have to think about it, but God, when it happens, like the humidity really fucks it up. Like it really does, because Greece was hot. Don't get me wrong. Like it's hotter in the sun in Greece than it is here. It's so much hotter. The sun is so striking. Like when it hits you, you can really feel the sunburn. You can really feel the UV rays and cancer. Like you can really feel it happening to you. Melanoma, is that the one?
Yeah.
But here, like I don't have to be in the sun, or I could be outside and I'm just like, fuck me, I'm wet. I'm just wet of heat. And it's just such a different experience. I spent the first few days I came back, I genuinely spent most of my time naked. I'm honest to God, like, and I mean awake time naked, because I was just in my room, just no clothes at all, and just sweating. And it's ridiculous how hot
that was me as well, pretty much. Like, thing is, I have to be social, I have to do things, so then like I struggle in the heat, so anything over 10, 11 degrees I'm dying anyway. And that's just how I've always been. Like I'm a little bit like bigger weight wise now, But rewind like 5 years ago when I was a little bit leaner, I guess, same thing. Heck, to be honest, I'll say I'm slightly leaner now than I was 5 years ago. Still the same thing. Like I sweat off anything. So when it was 28 degrees, I was in danger. When it was 34 degrees, I was on death's door. So like the fan just wasn't doing enough. I nearly bought like a shark fan because they kept on advertising it really well to me for like £100. And it's like super powerful. It's portable as well. And I still might buy it as an investment just because like it just sounds like a good idea. But I fucking hate the heat, man. It's the worst. And like my friend lives on the fucking Northern Line and it's like, oh shit, to go to her house and it's like, why are you fucking doing this to me, man? Like, and when I tried to take the overground, I was like, oh, I'll get the different way. Fucking overground bricks up. So I'm just standing at Hackney Central Station and I'm just getting all the sun on me. I'm like, let's say black people don't get don't get sunburnt. That's a lie. We do. I get sunburnt so easily. It's bad. Fuck. Yeah. So the Northern Line, diabolical. Like the underground during any sort of heat is the worst thing in the world. You know, it's literally just like I lived in Japan for 2 months. Jesus Christ, like it was the exact same.
Yeah,
like, I would.
Yeah,
you know,
Japan's bad.
Yeah, like things, but in the UK, it's hot and really stuffy outside, and it's hot and stuffy inside too. In Japan, everywhere has air conditioning. Everywhere, it's like a standard.
Yeah, but you're just stuck inside all day. But yeah,
but then like if you in the UK, you leave the underground, which has no air conditioning. They lie and say that some stations do. It's a fucking lie, Joe. They don't. Okay. And then you enter the underground sweating, leave it sweating, go to where you're going sweating. I was like, fuck me, man. But yeah.
Yeah, I feel like shops are probably the only places that are air conditioned.
Yeah.
Which is exactly good for me. That. But like, I mean, it is it's quite a thing. God, it was a struggle. And I'm a much colder person than you. I think I run hotter now. I've realized this recently. I think I run hotter as a human being, either because of age or for other reasons. Which is, I think, the opposite of normally of what happens when you get older. But I am warmer than I used to be when I was younger. Maybe I'm just not as skinny anymore. That might be it. But yeah, I'm not normally like bothered by the heat as much, and I really wasn't on holiday. This was all right. That was all my thing. That was the one thing where I was like, this is my venting moment, and I'm very unused to venting about the heat.
Yeah. And with that being said, it's now time for recommendation station. Choo choo. Joe, kick us off.
This one's a weird one. So I was just on I had like a late night a few days ago, and I was looking at and I was just doing my stupid YouTube thing, and then I came across a channel which I have done many times before, but I had never like really taken. Well, I had never really looked at the actual YouTube channel name before. I'd never like make note of it. I hadn't subscribed to it. I'd merely like seen a lot of stuff by this guy. It's Eddie Wu. So I believe he's Australian. I don't know his Asian heritage, but I believe he's Australian, and he has quite a few videos on YouTube. The videos I was watching were like 10 years old, and they're all pretty cool. There's quite a few maths channels that exist because yes, this is a maths channel. I know some people are terrified of me just saying that, but I want to make a clear point about why I like his videos a lot and why I actually think that even if you're kind of scared of maths or whatever, or if you're not so sure about maths, or I think a good example would be if you're someone who is looking for is maybe needing help with like learning maths for like an exam that you need to do as an adult, and and you didn't do super well when you were younger, or you want to refresh up on some things. There's loads of places you can learn this sort of stuff. But I think a fun one is his channel. So I think it's just called Eddie Wu, EDDIE space WOO. And what makes his more unique is that his are recordings taken during a class that he's teaching. You don't see any of the kids or anything. It's just him and the whiteboard or whatever it is, largely. And the thing I would say is, and it's really good because he's just very good at teaching it. He's very good at coming across. The kids are generally quite smart, like as in they seem to. They don't always understand everything. I'm not trying to make you feel bad by making you watch a video in which the kids know more than you. What I mean is just that they're very up. They seem to pick up what he's putting down, which is always just kind of like a nice vibe, I guess, if you're just listening in the background or if you're listening to the background kids just like kind of interacting or responding to him. And there's kind of like a perceived relationship that's very nice. He seems like a really nice like teacher from just the pure like visual of it. And but what I will say is that I wouldn't just go into his like videos and then start searching things because it's all over the place, but more like what I would recommend is going like Eddie Wu and then whatever thing you want to learn. Like I did, the one that got me was I went divide by zero, and I was just looking at the proofs of like divide by zero and things like that around it. Why is it undefined and other things like that? And I was just like, oh, this guy. And I thought, you know what, I'm going to put him on recommended because I haven't recommendation station. Sorry, I should use the terminology because I have this now, and I've never actually like used this. I never had a reason to kind of like pay attention so much to it, but. Yeah, just genuinely just quite chill, quite nice. If there's just anything in maths that you're kind of curious about, he's probably done a class on it or whatever. It goes to quite high levels, but I think most things, many of the more complicated subjects in like GCSE level or O level, if you're old enough for that, he'll probably like kind of he'll probably have gone over it at some point. So it's kind of worth looking at if you're. If for any kind of level, really, because probably would have discussed it.
Yeah, I'm going to tell you right now, I'm never checking that channel out. I failed maths 3 times. I don't need to relive that horror again. But everyone else should.
You might need it you might have to later on for an exam or like a test or something. I don't know, for something you're doing. So.
A test for what? If somebody pulls out a mathematics exam for, hey, we need you to do this job. Can you do this maths? I'm shooting them and myself.
One of my roommates had to recently, actually, and it's hard for her because she's Polish. So the biggest thing about it was the maths question writing itself, which, as you remember, is fucking awful. It's just made to trip you up for no reason. But yeah,
like my phone just went off. Look at that, my work phone just went off. Are they going to ask me to do a fucking GC maths test? I better not. Okay. Anyway, my recommendation station is one that has just passed 1 million unique signatures. Stop Killing Games. It is a very, very good initiative that we have needed for a very long time, and I'm going to read it verbatim. Stop Killing Games is a consumer movement started to challenge the legality of publishers destroying video games they have sold to customers. An increasing number of video games are sold effectively as goods, with no stated expiration date, but designed to be completely unplayable as soon as support from the publisher ends. This practice is a form of planned obsolescence and is not only detrimental to customers, but makes preservation effectively impossible. Furthermore, the legality of this practice is largely untested in many countries. So, games that you have bought, they end up becoming obsolete and you can't play them anymore, and it's sad. There's multiple examples of this happening. One right now is The Crew by Ubisoft. So a lot of people have lost games that they've put money into, especially games with microtransactions as well, or they've just put a lot of time into, and now they just have nothing there. There's a useless piece of garbage on their computer or a physical thing they bought it physically as well. This initiative aims to stop that, and despite other one YouTuber, Pirate Software, having a whole hissy fit about it because he doesn't understand and can't comprehend basic anything. I worked at Blizzard. Oh, shut up. I think it's very important to highlight that this is aiming to make the consumers' lives better. Like physically or virtually being able to own something is so important. and owning it, knowing that you can play it whenever you want or have a version of it to play with whenever you want. As little as the source code being made public for everyone to use, to tinker with themselves and to create mods out of the game. Things like that. Because capitalism is bad. And this helps people, especially people who are maybe poorer and can't afford the newest games, to replay older games as well. This makes collecting games, even virtually, somewhat worth it. It's now past 1 million, which means it's reached a benchmark. However, people are stupid and can't fill out forms. So we need more, as many as we can get. Make it so we can truly own what we buy and actually keep a hold of it. If you're in the UK, you need to scroll down the page I'm going to link, and then you're going to see the UK petition. I might just link the UK petition separately. Who knows? Then you can sign it as well. It is on the official government website, so don't worry, no one's going to come and steal all the information. But this is, I think the UK one has already reached 100,000. I'm going to check that now. And if anything reaches 100,000, then you are able to, it has to be heard in government. It has, as of recording, 133,513. So that means that this will now be up for debate in the House of Parliament. Yeah, this is important. This is important. So that's it. Anything else, Joe?
No, good.
Well,
episode 50.
Look at that. We can't collect our pension yet. So we're going to take 2 very old man steps to the rear and get out of here. We're in the wind. See ya.